All right. You ready to retire to the hill country? Most newbies to the area that think that they want to retire out here are stuck chasing pretty downtowns and wineries and things like that. But after a couple of years, they get completely burned out on that. So today I'm going to show you three small towns that, one, are a great value, two, have that great small town hill country vibe. And then I'm also going to share with you one that it used to be the place, but now it's just lost its soul completely. So stick around to the end and make sure that you don't end up in a tourist trap. The Texas Hill Country sells the dream. Rolling hills, friendly neighbors, better and slower pace of life. But when you factor in rising costs, limited medical care, and overdevelopment, some towns seriously just don't hold up. I've spoken with retirees, went through forums online, looked at cost of living data, and here are the three towns that are consistently delivering every time, and one that a lot of people regret moving to. All right, so the first town in the hill country you may not have thought about is Bernett, Texas. Now, it's pronounced Bernett, and the saying locally goes, it's Bernett, darn it, can't you learn it? Okay, a little bit of a play on words. It is definitely not Bernett. If you walk into Bernett, Texas, locals are going to look at you a little bit weird. Some of the reasons for Bernett being top of the list here is, one, there's a regional medical center, and then you've also got a Scott and White clinic, so you do have availability to healthcare, which we all know in retirement is really, really important, especially the longer you get into retirement. The second thing here is affordability. You can still find homes under $500,000, and you can even find homes on acreage under $500,000, which, let's be honest, a lot of people, when they're retiring to the hill country, they want to be away from their neighbors. They want that little bit of extra land, that little bit of wiggle room, that little bit of privacy. So being able to find something on an acre or two under $500,000 is a huge plus. Another really big positive for Burnett is if you're looking to retire, it's not like going on vacation and getting into somewhere like Fredericksburg, okay? When you're ready to retire, you're looking for something that's a little bit slower pace of life. You don't want to deal with all that tourism all the time like you would in, Marble Falls or Fredericksburg or Wimberly. So Burnett has it's less tourism overall. So you're going to notice that your day-to-day life is just a little calmer. Now, on the weekends, coming on the highways, coming through to the other hill country towns, you're going to have an uptick in traffic, but it is nothing like the other tourist towns that I mentioned. And if you talk to locals in Burnett, one of the things they always talk about is that Burnett's normal. There's a sense of normalcy. You're not going to find everything like you would find in Wimberly or Fredericksburg or other tourist places, but when you live in Burnett, it just works. It makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that makes a lot of sense about it is the location. Just northwest of Austin, you've got really easy access to Georgetown, Round Rock, that area. It's not too far of a drive to the Austin airport, and it's really not even that far of a drive down 281 to the San Antonio airport. So from a location perspective, even though you are remote in the hill country, you're still close to Austin and all the things that holds. So if your hill country retirement dreams involves acreage, peace, and quiet, all without having to sacrifice a huge drive back to, civilization, Burnett should be on your radar, should be a place that you check out. Before we get on to number two, I'm going to mention also, not only am I going to give you that one place that you may want to avoid if you don't want to end up in a tourist trap, I'm also going to have some FAQs at the end of this about some of the communities that didn't make this top three list for me. There's going to be a lot of names that come up that people are always asking about, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about why I didn't include them in this list. The number two Texas town, and honestly, the reason this wasn't number one is because of some of the reasons I mentioned a while ago. It is a little bit more of a tourist destination, especially on weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But that's Wimberly, Texas. Wimberly, I like to say, from my experience growing up and driving through Wimberly to go see my aunt and uncle in Fredericksburg, Wimberly is an old hippie town, but I call it a hippie town. What it really was through the 70s and 80s was an artist community. And because it was an artist community, you know that they've put smart limits on their growth, and they're not looking to become a huge community. They're not looking to stuff as many houses in, and that's really desirable to a lot of people. Wimberly, if you've never been there, is a picturesque town. It's settled down by the Blanco River. It's in the Blanco River Valley. It's known for things like Blue Hole, market days once a month. That's what I was mentioning earlier. Market days is when it seems like the whole world descends on Wimberly, but it's a really cool activity to go to at least a couple times. Think about market days in any other community, but it's just a really cool thing for locals to do. And there's a lot of influx of we'll call them tourists into the town during market days. Another really cool local feature is Jacob's Well, which Hasn't been open as much lately because of the lack of rain, but Jacob's Well, you really need to research it and look into that physical geological feature for Wimberley because it's really cool. And notice that two of the things that I said about Wimberley are natural features, Blue Hole and Jacob's Well. Wimberley is the epitome of the Texas Hill Country. There's so many cool things to see, get out, hike, take in the scenery, watch the sunsets off of Farm to Market 32 between San Marcos and Blanco. It's just south of Wimberley. It's in an area known as Devil's Backbone. And growing up, again, when I used to drive from Shiner with my parents to Fredericksburg, Devil's Backbone was by far my favorite drive in the hill country because it just goes up along this ridge and it winds back and forth, right? Like the Devil's Backbone, it's all curvy, it's not straight, and it's just got these huge views off to the north and northwest that you get amazing views from, especially sunset views. So there are so many cool natural features. But then, the other great thing about Wimberley is the leaders have really limited kind of that corporate growth or that box store growth. They don't really want it there. Now, you do have an HEB, a great big grocery store there, and that is, corporate. But for the most part, they're trying to keep that growth local and organic. One of the other really cool things about Wimberley, if you're a fan, is it's got a great local music scene and it's getting larger. Most nights of the week after Wednesday, Monday and Tuesday, the stores kind of shutter down and that's kind of their weekend, Monday and Tuesday. But starting Wednesday and going through Sunday, you're usually going to be able to find local music and live music somewhere in town. Whether that's Devil's Backbone Tavern or the Creekside Restaurant right there in downtown, you're going to be able to find local live music most nights. Now, one of the things that Wimberley is known for is they had a massive flood that unfortunately, took some lives a few years back, but FEMA flood maps definitely help with that and kind of keep you out of those danger areas and keep you out of those flash flood areas. But the interesting thing about that is it also, because of the terrain, because of the big hills and the giant slopes and stuff like that, it makes building a little bit more expensive, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're looking in retirement. Because like I mentioned, in addition to the local leadership trying to keep that density down a little bit, the terrain does it naturally. There's just parts of Wimberley that can't be built in. So as you drive through, you're just going to see green hills and canyons and things like that. And unless something major happens, it's going to stay like that. So Wimberley is going to be that kind of hill country getaway and give you that hill country vibe, at least for the foreseeable future. Another thing that makes Wimberley a great destination is, well, and this is why the tourists come as well, the town core is completely walkable. You can park a car on a day and really visit all the shops and all the restaurants, and there's a lot of them downtown at this point. So, even though it's a small community, you're never going to be at a loss of things to go do or see or eat for that matter. So that walkable town core could be a really good opportunity for you if that's something that you've had your whole life. If you've lived in a major metro area and it's been walkable for you, maybe you're looking for that. Wimberley would give you a good opportunity to find that in retirement. And then the last thing that I really love about Wimberley is it still feels like a community, okay? It doesn't feel like a resort just because of that history of arts. If you haven't been there, you just have to go and visit. It has a little bit of just an edge, a little bit of, I don't want to call it grunge because that brings up images of the 90s and that's not what it is, but it's not this spit polished town. It feels like a community. It feels like an old community. It's got an old soul. And when you're in there and you're walking through, it just feels good. It's like that old pair of shoes. You just slip them on and it just feels comfortable. That's the vibe you get when you're walking through Wimberley. So in your retirement destination, if you're looking for personality and you're looking for charm, Wimberley would probably be a really, really good option for you. Now, the third hill country town is one that a lot of people overlook. And honestly, it's because they're driving straight through it at 75 miles an hour. But the third one is Johnson City, Texas. And Johnson City is one that investors right now are starting to really pay attention to. I know one investor that is currently under contract on, I think it's 6 different properties in and right around Johnson City. Now, this is an investor that's the head of a group, and they've got a lot of money, and they're pouring that money in, and what their strategy is they're buying for a little bit of a longer-term hold. They're looking for development in 7 to 10 years, as opposed to trying to get development going right now and build something in the next 2 to 3. So they're looking a little bit more long-term, and again, that's just because Johnson City hasn't grown as much as these other hill country towns yet. One of the amazing things about Johnson City is the location. It's right on 281 and 290 comes in just south of town from Austin and then goes back out the west side of town to Fredericksburg. So Johnson City is technically the beginning of the Hill Country Wine Trail. Now, as I mentioned earlier, most people are driving through Johnson City to either get up to the Highland Lakes to Marble Falls and Bernett in that area, or they're heading west out of town to get to Fredericksburg. But the location of Johnson City is great. You've got Austin that's a little over an hour away. You've got San Antonio that's a little over an hour away. And that's also including their airports. So you're really kind of centrally located between the Austin and San Antonio airports. And in terms of retirement and medical center, there's a major medical center just up the road about 15 minutes in Marble Falls. So you're close to that. Another great benefit for Johnson City are the zoning laws. They're a little bit more relaxed. Again, it has not grown as much, so they haven't had to put a ton of restrictions in place. So you can do a few things. If you want to, build small to start and then kind of expand, you can do that. If you want to stretch out on a bigger piece of property outside of town, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of good opportunity for kind of whatever that vision you have of your retirement looks like. And in talking to some of my clients and friends that are out in Johnson City and other folks around town for that matter, the same theme keeps coming up. It still feels undiscovered. Like you've got some great restaurants there. Pecan Street Brewing is good food, good beer. Brian's on 290, really, really good food, kind of high-end food for that matter. You've got the Local, which they specialize in Wagyu beef, and they've got a deli counter and food there as well. But even though you've got some of these really nice amenities and, it's got a little downtown area with some shops and stuff, that theme keeps coming back. It still feels undiscovered because it's still more of a pass-through town than a destination town at this point. But if you get online and you go to forums like Reddit, what you're going to find out from the buzz there is that it's probably not going to stay a secret very much longer. People are starting to take notice of Johnson City, and they're starting to see it as a great opportunity for future growth and development. So the bottom line on Johnson City is it's not trendy, but to me, that's probably why it would be a good opportunity for retirement because it's coming. It's coming down the road, just like everything in the Hill Country. People want to move out there, just like you. People have dreams of retiring to the Hill Country. And in my opinion, it's not going to take long. And Johnson City values are really going to start to skyrocket. So this would be an opportunity to get in before that happens and just kind of watch your equity grow from there. Now, the fourth town, and this is the one that I warned you about. And if you know the Hill Country, if you've been to the Hill Country, you know the town that I'm going to say at this point would probably be one to maybe avoid, and that's Fredericksburg, Texas. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Fredericksburg. It's an amazing town. It's got great restaurants. It's got great bars. It's got a couple of great breweries in it. There's a lot to do. Enchanted Rock and the Pedernales River and all of the wineries and everything else. It's got a ton of stuff to do. The downtown, you can walk and go into shops and the boutiques and everything else, and you can spend 3 days there and not see anything. And then if you're a history buff, you've even got the Nimitz Museum, which is absolutely incredible if you're into war history. But Fredericksburg has been found out. And I think you know that if you visited. On a weekend, you could sit in traffic trying to get through town for 45 minutes. And it's not a big town. And so, saying a town has been crushed by tourism, it kind of seems like you're overstating at that point. But I still have family that live in Fredericksburg, and they will avoid town on weekends. It has been crushed by tourism. The other thing about Fredericksburg is the land costs are really, really high when you compare it to the other towns around them. Again, Burnett, we mentioned, Marble Falls, I've talked about a little bit, Lano, Johnson City, Blanco, Wimberly. Land costs are cheaper in all of those towns because it's not the Napa Valley of Texas, which is evidently what it's been called. And actually, recently I heard that somebody was calling it the Aspen of Texas. I'm not even sure what that means other than the fact that they probably are saying that it's overpriced. So the land cost in Fredericksburg, you're going to get a lot less for your money than if you go out to these other communities. And when a town is growing as fast as Fredericksburg is, the local healthcare is really, those resources are really kind of stretched at this point. So if you're dealing with something, a major emergency, okay, yeah, you can get that treatment locally. But if you're dealing with things beyond that, in order to get to another major hospital, you would have to go to Marble Falls, which again is further than if you lived in Johnson City or even Blanco for that matter. If you're in Wimberly, you can go to San Marcos. It's a 15, 20-minute drive. But for Fredericksburg, you're either going to have to go to Marble Falls or into Austin or into San Antonio to get your medical care. So those local resources are there, but they're so stretched thin at this point. And again, on weekends, and I keep talking about this, it's even stretched more thin because you've got so many tourists in that are having problems, that end up having to go to minor emergency or emergency care and stuff like that, that the locals find a harder time getting to those healthcare resources than you would in these other smaller towns. And it's funny when you look on Reddit and things like that. There's locals in Fredericksburg that call it the Disneyland of the Hill Country. And what they're referring to is it's expensive, it's overcrowded. It's not really an experience for the locals. You can imagine living around Disneyland as a local and all the tourists that come through. That's what some of the locals in Fredericksburg talk about. So if you're considering for your retirement, peace to be priceless. Yeah, Fredericksburg may cost you all of your money and it may cost you your peace and quiet as well. So I personally, I would be very, very careful about thinking about retiring in Fredericksburg. So let's have a few of these FAQs about some of the other Texas Hill Country towns. A lot of people say, well, what about Marble Falls? Marble Falls tourism has really exploded there as well. Marble Falls is growing really, really fast. One of the good things about Marble Falls is it has a large retirement community out there. The main one that's named is Horseshoe Bay, which is, it's not all retirement, but there's a lot of that community out there. But because you have the Highland Lakes, because you have Lake Marble Falls and LBJ and Inks Lake, and they're all constant level lakes, which means that the water level really doesn't vary very much. So even in droughts, you're going to have good water in the lakes. But because of that, the tourism has gone way up. A lot of people are moving there for retirement, like I mentioned. And so that's caused the prices to go absolutely through the roof. But if you're looking for lakefront living or riverfront living, Marble Falls could be a good option for you. It does have a medical center there. But again, one of the reasons that I left it off is because of the cost of living. You're going to have a lower cost of living just going north 15 minutes into Burnett or south 15 minutes into Johnson City. The second one I get asked about a lot is Dripping Springs. And Dripping Springs is my current home. If you need to be close to Austin or you need to be close to the Austin airport for some reason, Dripping Springs is a great option. But for retirees, and one of the demographics that we have here is we've got retirees that are moving here because their children have moved here to get their grandkids into our Dripping Springs schools. And so we do have a lot of retirees coming through this area and a lot that have moved to Dripping Springs. But the recurring theme that I hear from them is it's crowded. The growth is blowing up, and it's paused a little bit now, but they just broke ground on another 2,400 door community out here, and it's going to be a huge master plan community. So with traffic, with the crowds, with the growth, a lot of retirees are saying, you know what, my kids and grandkids may be in Dripping Springs, but I can go to Johnson City and be 15 minutes away. I can go to Blanco and be 20 to 25 minutes away. I can go to Wimberly and be 15 minutes away. So they can have more peace and quiet, less traffic on a normal basis, and kind of stay out of Dripping Springs. And then they can still go to baseball games and basketball games and football games and stuff like that because it's only a 15-minute drive. So Dripping Springs is a great town. I love it. But a lot of retirees are just kind of passing through, again, because of the congestion at this point, because of the explosion in growth. And all of that leads to higher prices, which, you're not going to get quite as much for your money in Dripping Springs as you are in those little bit further out hill country communities. The other communities I get asked about a lot are Kurville and Bernie. And again, great communities. I love both of them, and they've got a lot to offer. They're closer into San Antonio. Kurville is about 20 or 25 minutes south of Fredericksburg. Bernie's up there on I-10 as well, a little bit closer in. So there's a lot of good things going on there. Bernie is a lot like Dripping Springs. It's grown huge. It's growing really fast. The prices have gone up a lot. Kurville is a lot like Fredericksburg. It gets a lot of that same crowd, that weekend crowd. You get a lot of tourists coming through. But again, the land costs have gone up so much. And look, there's a reason why the land costs have gone up. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning out there. But again, for the money, and for the crowds and stuff like that, you can get just as beautiful of land in other locations if you don't need to be closer into San Antonio or closer to the San Antonio airport. Again, good options, but are they the best options for retirement? Again, I would probably look at a couple of other ones first. One of the other towns I get asked a lot about is Lano. It's on the Lano River. It's the county seat of Lano. They got Cooper's Barbecue, great barbecue up there. And again, that town center has the square around the courthouse. It's got a bunch of cool little shops and boutiques and stuff. Lano River runs through it. It's got a historic bridge. It's a really, really cool community. The biggest thing that people don't like about Lano is it's just a little bit further removed from Austin. It's about another 15 or 20 minutes out from Bernett. And for some people, that's just a little bit too far. So if you don't mind being more removed, Lano could be a really, really good option for you. Now, it's a little bit smaller of a town. It's a little bit more like Johnson City, I would say, and it's been discovered. People are definitely running the prices up out there, but it's still not as bad as Fredericksburg. So Lano could be an option for you if you don't mind being further away from the things that you need. There's not that major medical out there. I think the closest one would probably be Marble Falls still, or else all the way back into Round Rock. And you're further away from the airports because you're further away from San Antonio by far. Your closest airport would be Austin. So from a location perspective, I don't know that Lano works for everybody, but there's a lot of cool things to love about Lano. So it may be worth checking out if your wish list doesn't have close to a major metro or close to an airport. Now, questions that I get asked outside of about other towns. The first one is retirees always ask, well, should I buy now or should I wait? I can tell you, not with 100% certainty, but look, real estate in the hill country for the most part is going to continue to appreciate. Now, we have periods of up, we have periods of down, and there are times where land is not really going to lose value, but it'll stay stable. But if you're thinking about buying now versus in 3 to 5 years, if you've got the financial ability to do it now, go ahead and do it now, even if it means buying a raw piece of land and then holding on to that to build later. Locking in that land price at today's prices is probably going to be a pretty good strategic move for you. And then another question I get asked a lot, and I've talked about this, I believe, with every community, is if you're going into retirement, medical care, the access to a medical community is a big deal, especially if you're planning on making this your last move. So you do have the regional hospital in Burnett. You've got the larger hospital in Marble Falls, and then you've got San Marcos. If you get down closer to San Antonio, obviously you're going to have hospitals and into Austin, and on the north side of Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, and things like that. So your hospitals are really your hill country major hospitals, Burnett and Marble Falls. And then after that, it's your major metro areas. So if that is a real concern for you, if that's something that you're really paying attention to, you're going to want to stay closer into those major metro areas. And again, to me, I kind of like being between two possibilities. So that takes us back to, Johnson City or Blanco being between Austin and San Antonio. You've got more opportunities, you got more options, and really those roads are pretty nice both directions getting into either of those towns. And at the end of the day, again, this is my opinion, but when I think about where I want to be in retirement, I'm not looking for a town that's screaming, look at me, I'm the coolest place, I'm the trendy place. That's not really how I want to spend my retirement. And you might be the same way. And if you are, you want towns that just work. You want towns that you can get to the restaurants, that you can get to the grocery store, that you've got access to medical care, that you've got access to an airport and, the ability to travel to see family. So if you're looking for that retirement town that just works, again, my top 3 at this point are Burnett, Johnson City, and Wimberly. They all have the systems in place that you need. You can find calm there without the chaos. And for right now, they're still pretty affordable. But again, you may want to look at doing something sooner rather than later.